Okay, so we have seen about the conditional shapes in our yesterday session. So today we will see about conditional shapes. Okay, today we'll see about the document catching. Okay, today we'll see about document catching. So first of all, we are having three shapes available for document cache. One is like add to cache, retrieve from cache, and remove from cache. So why we need to use this document cache? Document cache it will be helpful if you want to store some data temporarily during the execution. Okay, if you want to store some data temporarily during the execution, then we just need to use document cache over there. For example, one second, let me copy the same. For example, you just want to catch this message, the data somewhere, and later, if you want to get the same data, then we need to use a document cache. Okay, so let me tell you how to store data in document cache and how to retrieve data and how to delete the existing records from document cache. So here I'm not explaining any of the scenarios. I'm not explaining any business scenarios for you. I'm just explaining how this document cache is going to work. Okay, first of all, I'll just explain you how to load data to the document cache and what are all the things that we need to take care of, and what is the key value, and how to retrieve the document cache, and how we need to retrieve data from the document cache using a index value and without index value. Okay, how we can retrieve all the records from the document cache and how to remove also. Okay, I just want to show you how to configure and how to do that. Okay, so from our side, this is the incoming file. Contacts is the incoming file which contains three different contact information. Correct. So three different contact information. So let me try to store this information in the document cache. Okay, let me try to store this information in the document cache. Let me use a branch over here. Add to cache. So I just want to add information to the document cache. So while adding, you need to create a component. Document cache is a component. Okay, so let me create a component over here. What is the profile type? XML is the profile type, and choose the profile. Here the profile is contact profile and add an index. My index is like ID is the index that I have defined, and add the field element. So what is this key value? How it is going to work? Here, key is nothing but the value based on which records will be stored to the document cache. Okay, so based on this key value, records will be stored to the document cache. Save. So it will consider the incoming file's ID value, and based on that ID value, it will store the records. And in the second branch, if you want to check whether the records has been stored successfully or not, you can use retrieve from cache. Okay, retrieve from cache. So you can use retrieve from cache, choose the document cache, and there is an option here available. So to get all records or based on ID. Okay, so it is like based on ID. So let me provide some constant ID 30. Okay, there are 3 records available for us, right? See here. There are 3 records here. First record ID is 10, second record ID is 20, and third record ID is 30. So I want to get this record, Divya record, from the document cache. So that's why what I did, I have provided a static value as an input to the ID. So what it will do, it will check whether any record exists with that ID is equal to 30 or not. Then it will populate the record if it exists. Okay. So first branch, the record will be stored to the document cache. In second branch, what we are checking? We are checking whether the record is existing or not. Okay. We are trying to retrieve the stored record. Okay. Test. Okay. See, maximum length exceeded. There is an error for the field name. Snehit, maximum length exceeded error. So I think you remember yesterday we just set a field length validation. We have set a field length validation for the name. Let me remove that. Okay, because that is causing an issue. Save, test now. So it is saying that only one entry per the document will be allowed. Only one entry per the document will be allowed. But what is happening here? You just need to have a unique ID for each and every record to be get stored. Okay. But here we are sending a document which contains multiple records. See here. This is the document which we are trying to store, which contains multiple records. So when you have given ID as a key field, then it is finding 3 IDs, 1, 2, 3. So what it is saying, we are having 3 ID fields with distinct ID values, so we can't save it. So that is the error what document cache is returning. So what we need to do in that case? So when we are storing any record to the document cache, okay, based on the logic, you just need to split the document. Okay, so based on the requirement and based on the logic, okay, you need to split. If it is not working like this, then what we can do, we need to split while sending it to the document cache. We need to split while sending that to the document cache. So in order to split, we have a data process shape which will help us to do the split function. So what we are doing, instead of sending all the document as a single all the doc instead of sending the document with multiple records, we are sending each and every record as a separate document to the document cache. Okay, run test. Yeah, now here you can see how many records that we are storing. 3 records. What is the first record? Ravi with ID 10. Second record that we are storing, Snehit with ID value 20. And the third record is Divya with ID value 30. Okay, these are the 3 records that we have stored to the document cache. But once we are retrieving, when we are retrieving the values, when we are retrieving the records from the document cache, let's see the first record which we retrieved. It is Divya 30. Okay, let's go to the second. First record is Divya with ID value 30. This is also Divya with ID value 30. And third record will also be same. Why? Why we are getting third record only? Why? Because there are 3 incoming documents and you have configured static value of 30. So every time this retrieve from cache is going to execute, it will take input ID as 30. Why? Because you have defined it as a static value. Okay, so every time it will take that 30 value and it will populate the respective record. So for example, if you want to make it in a dynamic way, instead of populating a static value like 30 or 20, if you want to take that from the incoming data, how we can do that? Okay, how we can do that? So let's take an use of dynamic document property. You have seen that, right? There are many ways to use that. Okay, dynamic document property. For example, you need to set a dynamic document property over here. You need to set a dynamic document property over here. Okay, let me set a dynamic document property over here. Set properties. So this is a dynamic document property and we are taking ID from the contact field. And you can provide this dynamic document property as an input to the document cache. Okay, so how you can do that? Instead of static, you can go with the document property and go with dynamic document property, and you just need to use the name. Okay. DDP. So you're defining it here and before branch. So the value of dynamic document property will be sent to the all branches because we are setting it before the branch. Okay. If you are setting it, then until the end of the document flow, this particular value will be existing. Okay. So let me test it now. So now let me see the output. The first record is Ravi with ID value 10. Okay. And the second record is 20 with ID 20 with name Snehit. Okay. So we are getting the required records based on the set properties that we have configured. If you want to see the logs, what is happening and all while retrieving the document from document cache, you need to click on document cache and go to the logs. See here, parameter one value 10, 20, 30. Okay, it is showing the parameter value, what it has taken as a reference to fetch the record from document cache. Okay, so there are 3 records that are stored in document cache, and you are trying to retrieve those 3 records in a dynamic way instead of giving some static value 10, 20, or 30. We just used a dynamic way. That means we used a dynamic document property approach, and we just configured that while retrieving the document from document cache. Okay. So you may ask, is it only the way or is any other way? Yes, there is other way also. Okay, no need to configure dynamic document property only because you are getting a document profile over here. You can use profile element, what we did earlier for the conditional shapes, and we can do all these things. Okay, anything, but it should match with the existing record. Existing record in this is the record which got stored in document cache is ID value. And one more thing, the values will be stored only during that execution. Once the execution has been completed, no records will be exist in that document cache. That's why I'm saying it is a temporary storage. Document cache is like a temporary storage in Dell Boomi, which will hold some data, for further executions during an execution. Okay. Only in that execution time, it will wait for the execution. I mean, it will help us to store some data in document cache. Clear, all of you? Hello?
Yes, clear.
Okay. Now we will see one more thing, that is remove from cache. Okay, remove from cache also we will see. So let me include 3 branches. And remove from cache is my second branch, and retrieve from cache is my third branch. So I just used it in second branch. Why? Because I just want to remove some records after storing. Okay, I just want to remove some records. So for example, let me choose the document cache and choose the ID. I just want to use a static value over here. I want to remove a record with static value of 10. I want to remove that. Okay. Now let me test this process. So what happened in the first branch? Record got stored. Okay. And what happened in the second branch? we are trying to remove a record from document cache. And what is happening in the third branch? So we are trying to get the records from document cache. So let's see how many records. So how many records that we are getting from the third branch document cache? Only 2 records. Why only 2 records? One record has been already deleted in the remove from cache shape. So what was the record? With ID value 10. So here you will see ID with 20 and 30 only. Okay. So this is the record of Snehit with ID value 20. And find the next one. This is the record of Divya with ID value 30. So what happened? There are 3 records stored in document cache in the first branch, and one record with ID is equal to 10 has been removed in the second branch using remove from cache, and the remaining 2 records like ID is equal to 20 and 30 are in the third branch. We try to retrieve those 2 records from document cache using dynamic document property. So I hope you are clear with all these 3 shapes. They are very simple, but the thing is like you just need to practice. Okay. So now I just want to implement the same document cache lookup. How we need to use this document cache lookup. Okay, how you need to use this document cache lookup in map functions. Let me tell you that. Let me open map functions for you. Map and map functions. Okay. So here you have seen about the map functions. So before explaining that, let me use a document cache approach. So here you are trying to store records into the document cache, and in the second branch, I just want to show you the document cache lookup. Okay. So here under the lookups, we have seen about simple lookup, CRT lookup and all, and let me add a document cache lookup. So let me take a document cache lookup. So you need to go to the lookup, and there you will find the document cache lookup. Okay, choose the document cache lookup from here, and we need to choose the index also, and choose the output parameters. I want to take name and ID as my output parameters. Okay. Name and ID as my parameters. There it is. Okay. So ID is the input. Obviously, I'm just providing ID as my input, and let me map ID. So DC lookup ID, DC lookup name. So from where we are mapping? Are we mapping it from the source profile? No, we are mapping it from the document cache lookup. Okay, we are mapping it from the document cache lookup. So when we are doing this document cache lookup, you need to have one thing, like you need to have that correlation existing. You need to have that correlation existing between the data stored in document cache and the profile what we are getting in the source. Here you can see that it is the same profile. For your understanding, for your better understanding, or in order to make you clear how to configure a document cache and all, I just used a single profile. But in real time, there might be a chance of using multiple profiles. One profile to store the data in document cache, and one profile as a source profile element for the map. Okay, there might in those cases you need to have that correlation existing between the key value of the document cache and the incoming profile. Okay, you need to have that. So let me test this process. Okay,
Ravi sir,
yeah,
actually I have a small doubt.
yes please.
For three individuals, we are getting the three documents.
Mm-hmm.
For 100 number of 100, 100 individuals.
Yeah, you will get the 100 documents because you need to split them, right? You need to split
Right.
the 100 documents. We are using data
So,
process.
but it will take a lot of time to check and verify that, right?
Correct. It will take a lot of time. That's why you just need to choose these things based on the requirement. Okay. It is not like
Okay.
every time you need to split the records. Okay. Here, I'm trying to explain you how the functionality is going to work.
Yeah.
And there is no thumb rule to use these decision or conditional shapes or map or something. It is completely based on your requirement. Okay, if you are having
Okay.
all these things in your mind, okay, how it is going to work, if you are getting a single document which contains multiple records, and how it is going to work if you are splitting those records. So if you have all these things in your mind, then you just
Okay.
need to choose them wisely, and you need to build an integration solution. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So let me show you the first record. See here, DC lookup ID, DC lookup name. ID is equal to 10 and Ravi for the first record. And for the second record, it is 20 and Snehit. And 30 and Divya for the third record. Okay. This is how you need to use a document cache lookup. And instead of using a document cache lookup, there is one more possibility to use a document cache. You can attach a document cache over here also. Add document cache. Okay. Choose input is id is the index, and it is asking for the id key value. And here if you click on this magnifying glass, it will show the source profile. What is the source profile? ID is the source profile. So we are giving id as an input. So see, this is how it is going to be populated. This is how it is going to be populated. So what you need to do here, let me create a new map function. I mean, new parent element DC, and max occur is equal to unbounded, and let me define child elements. Control A, name, ID, phone, date, country. So we have these things, and let me map them directly from here. Name, ID, mobile to phone, and country to country, and date to date. Okay, I just map these things. Now let's see. So there are two possibilities. One is like using a map lookup, I mean map function lookup, and the second thing is like attaching that to the source profile. So even do if you want to do like a lookup, and if you want to attach it to the source profile, one thing is common, that is like you need to have a correlation with the incoming profile and the profile which we used in our document cache. You need to have that correlation, otherwise it won't work. So So see here, at last DC, Ravi 10, phone number and all. This is for the first record. For the second record, it will be Snehit, ID is equal to 20 and something like that. See, Snehit, ID is equal to 20, phone number, date, etc. etc. So for the third record, it is like it is for Divya. So these are all the possibilities to attach a document cache. Not only here, you can use this kind of document caching approach in conditional shapes also. Okay, so yesterday we have discussed about the conditional shapes, and if you observed in conditional shapes, there is a possibility to use a document cache lookup. See here, document cache lookup. So you can configure that document cache also here. So let's try with the document cache, how to configure and how to use it in a conditional shape. Okay, just try it from your ends, and if you are seeing any issues, please let me know. I'll try to help you. Okay, I'll help you with that. So let me open conditional shapes document cache. So just use document caching in your process. So this is all about the document caching, because we have seen document caching, how to use it in a map function, how to attach to the source profile, and apart from that, we have seen all the three shapes that are available: load to caching, remove from caching, retrieve from caching. Okay, we have seen these three shapes, and I told you we can use the same kind of implementation in conditional shapes also. Okay, there you just need to do the practice. So try a scenario, try how to use a conditional routing using a document cache over there. Okay, try a conditional routing, how to do that using it, or else let me show you a simple example here, then you can understand and you can practice. For example, let me take a document cache. Okay, document cache lookup, and here you need to choose the document cache, and here you need to choose the index and output parameter. What is the output parameter that you want to get? I want to get output parameter is equal to ID, and what is the input? Input is also ID. So what we are taking? We are taking a document property, dynamic document property, DDP. DDP మనం define చేసాం కదా, I mean we already defined the DDP, right? So we just need to use the DDP over here as a parameter, as a key parameter. So what we will get as an output, we will get ID as an output. Okay, so if that value equal to 30, then that record will be sent to the true path, else it will be sent to the false path. That is the condition that I have configured. Okay. So if that value is equal to the 30, then that record will be sent to the true path, else it will be sent to the false path. So what I'm trying to say is like you can use this document catch lookup. You can use this document catch lookup in conditional shapes also. That is the point actually that I want to highlight. Okay. So if the ID is equal to ID of the record is equal to 30, then that record will be sent to the true path. Remaining records will be sent to the false path. See how many records in the true path? Only a single record in the true path with ID is equal to 30 as we configure, and the remaining records in the false path. So this is how you need to configure. You need to configure the conditional shapes with document catch. Clear, guys?
Yes, yes, clear.
Okay. So just go with these conditional shapes first. I mean, sorry, just go with this document catch. So what you need to do is like you just need to correlate all the things. Okay. We are just individually discussing each and every shape, but there is an internal correlation between all the shapes. Like today we discussed about a document catch, and you can use the document catch lookup in our conditional shapes, and we can use the same thing in our map also. So try to link all these shapes in that way, which will help you to understand better. Okay. So that's all for today's class. If you are having any doubts, you can stay here, or else you can drop off. Hello. Okay. Thank you all. Thanks for joining.